Hi everyone, welcome back to Sunfire Fire channel. So I want to talk to you about my whole project. It's been for my seminar class, which if you don't know, it is History 790 for anyone who's taking a history graduate course at Southern New Hampshire, and it's getting you ready for your capstone course, which is History 791. If you're not a public history major, I think it's 792 if you're a public history major. I'm not sure, but I'm not a public history major, so that's different. So my my initial project, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I went up on and I figured about doing horror, and but I just wanted to focus on horror, particularly horror like around the golden age of Hollywood, because I like that type of horror. Because I heard that after Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in like the 70s, like it just all became like gore and stuff like that, and I just was not into horror movies. But then I came across the golden age of horror, and it's like that's where, like, I feel like those kind of stuff, those kind of things make you think about more than just it's made to make you scared. And that's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons why I like those types of horror movies. You could even call them psychothriller. Like I said before on this channel, Boris Karloff liked calling it thriller. I think that's one of the reasons why he made the show Thriller. I actually only watched it like a few times because it was only on MeTV for a small time, and I didn't watch it until I didn't get to watch it, and it was only a few when I started really getting into Boris Karloff. Then I realized, oh, he was on that show that I watched. Okay. So back to my project. So I was thinking about horror. So on my first week of my class, I was doing a discussion about what I want to focus on. I was talking about horror, and how I want to focus on the psychothriller part and stuff like that. And my professor was all for it. He was okay with it. And then the second week, that kind of got a little muddy, because then he was just like, okay, I understand that you like this, but it sounds a little bit like film studies. And then I looked at over it again, and I was just like, at my topic over again, I'm like, yeah, kind of is film studies. It kind of is like film studies. So I kind of didn't want to change anything, because first of all, like at the beginning of the middle of in the middle of the class, which is week 5, there are 10 weeks, I'm supposed to do an annotated bibliography. And so I would have 3 weeks to find books about horror and stuff. So which I already did have to find new books for my change of pace for my brother, but I'll get into that later. So I changed it. So as I was thinking, I was like, what am I going to change it to? What am I going to change it? Because I still want to focus on horror movies in the golden age of Hollywood. So what do I want to think about? So I was thinking, and in my initial paper, I wanted to have a section where I talk about um, the parallels of the mad scientist and the monster. I was gonna call it "Who is the Monster? Who is the Man?" And I picked that title because it sounded nice, like in the movie Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney version. Not Frollo. I forget who's the dude who's the gypsy, but when he's singing, he says, "Who is the monster? Who is the man?" And so I kind of like that. I kind of like that title for that subtitle for my section. So I was thinking about that because I really wanted to do that. So I was thinking maybe I should look at Mad Doctors, and I should tie it to the doctors that paved the way for modern medicine. So so now I'm getting into the part where I had to find all new books, and it's just like, and so I was just scrambling. Oh, what, I can't find anything because you're supposed, for your thesis, you're supposed to have at least 30 books. For my annotated bibliography my history class, for my seminar class, I had to have 8 to 10 books. So I was scrambling to find books because there was 3 weeks left until my annotated bibliography was due. So that was a lot of work. So I had to look. I was looking, and I came across a few books that I really like. Do I have them here? Yes. So here's a few that I got. I got The Face Maker. It's by Lindsay Fitzharris. It's about, I got this on Amazon. I forget how much it cost, but you could probably find it on somewhere else, probably for cheaper. Wherever, just type in the name and it'll come up. It is about Harold Gillies, who he did plastic surgery on a lot of the soldiers from World War One, when their faces were dismembered, disheveled. So, yeah. I also got Our Bodies Belong to God, and this is about this is by Shireen Hamdi, and it takes place in Egypt, and it's talking about organ transplants during in Egypt, and how Islam is plays into it. So I'm thinking, since I have all these books, I would also talk about the ethics of comparing, contrasting. So I'm just gonna have a compare and contrast essay about thesis. So 75 to 100 pages about something. I also got Borrowing Life, which is about the first kidney transplant. Happened in Boston. It's by Shelley Fraser Mickle. I also got The Story of Medicine Through History, through the history of transplant surgery. The Spare Parts by Paul Craddock. This is very interesting. I thought this was very interesting, and this is one of the first books I bought that was interesting because it's actually Lindsay Fitzharris actually did a review on it. I didn't know that. She did a small review on the back. So this is actually pretty interesting because this is looking at before organ transplants were the thing, before when modern medicine really took off in the early 20th century. It's they were talking about this in the 16th, 17th century. So that is it's very nice. I think probably they started doing that because of the Enlightenment. Because the Enlightenment was really set everyone off to asking questions. So I think I feel like, I'm pretty sure my whole thesis is going to be like a comparison project about mad doctors and mad scientists and versus the doctors that we have today and I chose transplant in surgery I chose surgery because they are known to do that. So that's what I'm thinking. I also feel like I got way in over my head as well, more than I usually do, because I like to do stories if you've gone through my journey of, you know what, maybe I'll go over the papers that I did throughout my history program. But throughout my history program, I've just picked topics of papers that I feel like no one usually covers in the mainstream part of history. So it's like, and I'm drawn to that. Like, I obviously, I think I've talked about how, which I'm really proud of, I've talked about fashion, comparing and contrasting American Revolution to French Revolution fashion. That's what I really like. I wrote a paper on Asians in New Spain, and because of the North, and they were part of the North Atlantic. They were part of the Atlantic slave trade. So yeah. So yeah, that wasn't. They weren't necessarily slaves, but I mean, there's a big population in South America now of these, especially in Mexico, because of a lot of these Filipinos coming. They had Chinese. They even had some Japanese, and they even have some Japanese and Korean people coming in. So it's very. I feel like not a lot of people. I felt like not a lot of people think about Asians when we're talking about the Atlantic slave trade. And we only think about the only people that matter in the slave trade are black people, and it's just like that wasn't the case, because there was also slavery in South America. So yeah. So and my most recent one, which is sex during the Civil War, my most recent paper, sex during the Civil War. I've actually posted. I posted my fashion one in my fashion project in academia.edu. So if anyone wants to read that, I posted a few of my papers in academia.edu. So I forget which ones. I know like I wrote about like the Jewish Revolution, which was kind of like during the Russian revolutions. So, but it wasn't really a revolution. It was a revolution. I think it was a revolution, but it's not like a revolution where like there was a battle with, like there was Jewish combat within the Russian Revolution combat. I'm saying like the culture was revolutionized. So I don't think I've posted that to academia.edu, but I will, because I want other people to read, and I just wish that people who are like me would suppose would make more content so it would be easier for people who are like me, who want to talk about these types of issues, these types of projects that a lot of people don't talk about or you never hear about. It's easy information to find. So yeah, and I think that's the reason why I wanted to talk about horror, is because I can't really find, well, because I don't want to say I can't really find, but I want to, okay, but I want to I feel like I want to kind of make more information available to students who want to just be a little more outgoing with their research. And like that's the whole reason why I became a historian, is because I like learning new things. I like just like, because there are so many there are so many papers you can read about, like there are so many things you can read about, like, oh, was the Civil War good or bad or something. Well, you can't really use that because it's a yes or no answer. But I'm like, you're just you want to dig a little deeper in some of these things, and that's why I do what I do. I like to look at social and emotional and parts of history. And that's one of the reasons why I really liked historiography. I really like historiography. And like, it's actually, when I was in my undergraduate, I didn't know what historiography was, but like that's one of the reasons I started getting into history, because I was just like, but why did people who were in this event do the things that they did? What were they thinking? What was their viewpoint? What could have happened? What in their background could have made them see this event as this? So yeah. So I'm on week 6 of my history seminar class right now. And I have 4 weeks left, and I have another paper due. I think we have to like reflect on like our research. So I'm currently looking for more books on horror, because now I did my annotated biography and I put all these books in that I found. I think I have a few more that I went over. I think they're online books. And my teacher read my annotated bibliography, and he was like, but there's no horror books on this annotated bibliography. And I think that's why I got a B+, which is a lot higher than I thought I was gonna get, because it was at the last minute, because I had to scramble to reorganize my whole thoughts. So, and I still don't know what the sections are. I'm going over what sections, how I'm gonna lay out my thesis. So I'm still trying to find out more of the horror books I have, trying to find more horror books that I have, because since there was I didn't use the horror books in my annotated bibliography, because none of them, at the time, I didn't think any of them went with my thesis statement for my thesis. I know it's hard. It's hard to get over, because there's a thesis statement and then there's a thesis dissertation type thing. So I have to make sure I'm not just saying thesis, because usually I just say thesis and you know what I'm talking about. But I'm actually doing a thesis right now, so I have to say thesis statement. I have to be precise about that. So I didn't think, so I had to do my research question, and it was how I have my thing. Let me I have a notebook with me. Just, it got water damage. I always leave my water bottles open in my bag, and so I have a bunch of water damage on my thing. But no matter how far I've gone through, it still does its job. I have a little notebook with me, so like if I get an idea, I can. No. So, what was my where is it? Okay. My research question. I wrote it down. I don't know where it is now. Okay, my research question is, how does the Mad Doctor character portrayed in films relate to doctors in history that contributed to modern medicine? Kind of a broad topic, kind of a broad research question. I feel like it's kind of a broad research question, but I mean, this is only the summer class, so it's probably going to get more refined. And then my thesis statement, my thesis dissertation I don't know if a thesis and a dissertation are the same. Are they the same thing or are they different? I don't know. Mad Doctor, my thesis statement is Mad Doctor characters are similar to the doctors that contributed to modern medicine because they are both passionate, they take risks, and they are relentless. So yeah, so I feel like, what I'm going to do. Here are some brainstorming things that I'm going to do that I feel like I want to do. I want to list out in my outline, my thesis statement, my thesis dissertation. So I'm going to define Mad Doctor because they needed something to go on. The similarities between the two, I'm going to go over ethics and what defines good versus bad doctor. So, and I kind of like that because I kind of really like that thing that I'm going over because I like to talk about what defines good and what defines evil. Like good and bad, I feel like aren't necessarily. I feel like good and bad aren't always necessarily black and white, especially when you're talking about history. And we all know that, because for some reason everyone wants to get canceled for some. We're canceling dead people now just because they did one bad thing wrong that we don't like. So it's just like, ugh. But not here to talk about that. Talk about probably another video, or not, because I love to ramble. I feel like I'm going to talk about their patients, because I feel like in this book that I have, the Lindsay Fitzharris book, the patients go, there are some, I feel like it talks a little bit about how the patients feel, how they feel dismembered, and and how they feel like a monster. So I feel like, and I think that's also the reason why I got Our Body Belongs to God, because it shows like how the patients feel about going through surgery and stuff. So it's just like, so it makes you think about how the monsters feel in the horror, in the Mad Doctor, and the horror movies, in the Mad Doctor books and stuff, and then how patients who the real life patients with the modern medicine doctors. So this is a very broad topic, but I'm going to talk about organ transplants and plastic surgery. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but am I going to do separate organ transplants and then plastic surgery, or just talk about them both together? I don't know. I'm still working out this stuff. And then there's another something I wrote, fiction versus reality. Who is creating or practicing something that is not achieved? Yeah, okay. Fiction versus, yeah. So the difference is I did fiction versus reality, and like it's like what define I think what I want now reading this I I should probably say what is what is something that, because they both are creating or practicing something that would that is not achievable, but now looking back we realize that it is achievable. Like in the movie Frankenstein, he does brain surgery. He technically does brain surgery, and 100 years later, brain surgery is a thing now. So it wasn't achievable. He was a mad doctor. The first person who did brain surgery was probably also kind of a mad doctor too, because people were just like, well, that's only in movies. You're actually doing it in real life. But it worked. So it's just like, so I was thinking like, so that's the term where mad and like lunacy comes in, but like we associate the modern medicine, like I said before, Frankenstein technically did brain surgery. I don't know who was the first person who did brain surgery. I'll look that up. He did brain surgery. What's the difference? They were both relentless, but why is Heinrich Frankenstein the evil guy, and this brain surgeon that did brain surgery the good guy? It's because we know now, when we see now that we're like 50 years into the future, now we see that it's possible, and so that he paved the way for modern men. But Heinrich Frankenstein didn't. Well, also he was fictional, so it's like, but it's just like they didn't think brain surgery was achievable back then either. But and usually mad doctors are seen as bad, and most doctors in history are good. So yeah, that's what I wrote. So yeah, that's what I wrote. And I also feel like I want to, I'm probably gonna look at some psychiatric books as well, probably to go over lunacy and how like the behavior of lunacy, not really as a psychiatric illness, but as a behavior, because I feel like there's a thin line between like being, you're gonna do everything you can to do this, but and there's lunacy, and it's just like but like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing with the same outcome, doing the same thing and thinking that you're gonna get a different outcome, but when you always get the same outcome. So but it's just like, the thing is, scientists have done stuff like this, and they've come out with they've revolutionized their domain. So it's just it's a very complicated subject that I'm going to tackle. Man, that's why I kind of feel like I'm getting over. This is getting out of hand, but somehow I always get it done. But in this case, it's very different because it's at least 75 pages. Well, hopefully I can go 75 pages. Um, so yeah, that's all I have for today.